Good afternoon, Madam Registrar. Could you call the case, please?
Good afternoon, Your Honors. This is the case number ITO 538T, the prosecutor versus Via Popović et al.
I thank you. All the accused are present. Prosecution, we have Mr. McCloskey, Mr. Van der Puy, Ms. Solian. Oh, I can't see him. I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell, but the column is in the way, so I couldn't see you. Absent amongst the defense teams, I noticed Mr. Miletić and Mr. Bougon, and I think that's it. Okay. The witnesses, yes. Ms. Miletić, you are announcing.
Good afternoon, Your Honors. I would just like to present to the chamber and my colleagues, Mr. Dražen Dukić, a new member on our team.
All right, thank you. And you most welcome, Mr. Dukić. Mr. Van der Puy, you finished. Mr. Lazarevic, you were to start today, half an hour maximum, so that the gentleman can make it to the airport in time. Please.
Thank you, Your Honor, and good afternoon.
Question. Dr. Ristivojevic, I will do my best to finalize my direct examination within the time limit allocated to me by the chamber. In order to avoid any kind of confusion, I would kindly ask you to speak slowly. During your yesterday's testimony, on page 92 of the transcript, you spoke about the failure to provide assistance as a crime provided by the criminal code. According to your recollection, what was the sentence that this crime carried? Answer, I think that the maximum sentence that this crime carries is 1 year imprisonment, and there was no specified minimum sentence. Question, very well. One more question in this regard. Could a perpetrator of this crime be an official or any physical entity? Answer, anyone. The law says whoever, which means that any individual can be the perpetrator of this crime. Question. The defense team of Mr. Borovchanin already questioned Mr. Bajagic, an expert in the structure of MUP, the police forces, staffs, the PJP units, the Special Police Brigade, and other subjects related to police work. Since on a number of occasions you were asked about some of these topics, can you tell me whether these topics were the subject of your report? Did you analyze them in any respect, in any detail? Answer, no, I didn't. And that is what I said yesterday. I'm not an expert in police work in general and how it is organized or how it operates. Whenever I was asked a question in this relation, I think I emphasized that question. In addition to the units mentioned in Order 64/95 dating the 10th of July, which we already extensively discussed, in your expert report, did you at all tackle or address any other unit that you were questioned about during the cross-examination by my learned friend, Mr. Ostojic? Answer, no. Question. When you were questioned by my learned friend, Mr. Ostojic, and that's on page 28,000 007 and 008, it was suggested to you that resubordination ceases once a combat task is accomplished, and that on the 12th of July 1995, as it says in the transcript, there were no enemy offensives in the Srebrenica sector. Do you remember that part of your evidence? Answer, yes, I do. Question. Since the position of our defense team is that the enemy offensive was finally finished by the breakthrough and the reaching of the territory under the control of the BH army, and that in that period, Mr. Borovčanić in the general area of Bratunac and Zvornik was resubordinated to the VRS. Can we just look at a couple of documents relevant to this subject? I would kindly ask the chamber, since this witness, for the most part, was involved in analyzing rules and regulations rather than the facts, I would just like to highlight a couple of documents, and I will mention others only for record. Question, can we first look at document P47, please? That's a report issued by the main staff of the VRS, addressed to the President of Republika Srpska and dated the 13th of July 1995. Can we look at page 3, item 6B in BCS, and in English it's on page 3. As you can see, item 6, sub-item B, states that units of the Drina Corps are at full combat readiness, and the subordinated units of the Corps, specifically the 1st Bratunac and the 1st Miletić brigades, were involved in scouring the terrain, and so on and so forth, as stated in this report. From this document, can one deduce that combat activities are still ongoing on the 13th of July in the area of responsibility of the Drina Corps?
Mr. Van der Puy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Number one, this is leading. The second issue is that this witness has repeatedly testified that he's not a military expert and he's unable to determine when a combat operation commences and finishes.
Yes, Mr. Van der Puy seems to be right, Mr. Lazarević.
Želeo sam to I da kažem.
Answer, this is exactly what I intended to say. I said that yesterday, and I told that to Mr. Ostojić as well, and I would repeat the same answer, actually.
Thank you.
All right. For record, I would just like to mention with regard to this topic, the following documents deal with the events that took place after the 13th, i.e. the combat operations and the involvement of MUP units in these operations after the 11th and the 12th. These are exhibits P136, P137, P138, P139, P140, P48, P49, P3061, and I'm not going to go on. This is quite a few documents that we are dealing with.
I notice Ms. Pavot.
Monsieur le Président, je ne sais pas si c'est une question, si ce sont des arguments.
Your Honor, I'm not sure if it's an argument or a question. Of course, these documents can be presented to you, but maybe not in front and through the witness.
Question. I most certainly didn't show any of these documents to the witness. I just enumerated them for the record.
Anyway, and we'll see where we get.
Question. With regard to resubordination of MUP units, let us look at document 1D, 1045, please. You're going to see it shortly in e-court. That's a request by the Drina Corps Command, dated the 15th of July, 1995. It is, of course, addressed to the Zvornik, Miletić, and Bratunac brigades as the unit subordinated to the Drina Corps, and they request reports to be submitted about the engagement of forces. Paragraph 1 mentions MUP units as well. Can you see that? Answer? Yes, I can. It says, report where units, your units and MUP units in your area of responsibility are engaged. Question, precisely. So, and just one question regarding this document. Given the date that this document bears, which is the 15th of July, 1995, does this document tell us anything about resubordination of MUP units and their engagement in the activities on this date?
Yes, one moment. Yes, Madame Favot.
Monsieur le Président, je crois.
Your Honor, I think the witness should maybe read the first paragraph first, and then he can maybe answer the questions. I think the way the question was put to him was completely unconnected to the document as presented to him.
Of course, I'm not opposed to it. The witness has the document in front of him, and he will be able to look at it.
All right. In the meantime, I suppose he's had already a chance to look at it, having heard Madame Favot. Let's proceed with your question and the answer.
So this is a report about the use of the forces of the Drina Corps, because the situation in the field was quite confused, and a report is demanded to be submitted about the location of the Drina Corps units and the MUP units in your area of responsibility. The reference is probably to the MUP units that were subordinated to the Drina Corps because they were in its area of responsibility, but that's my assumption.
Yes, Mr. Van der Poel.
Well, I'm glad the witness qualified his answer. It is a speculative answer because the document itself doesn't refer to the specific units that were resubordinated pursuant to the July 10 document that my colleague referred to earlier.
Okay,
I just want the record to be clear on that.
Let's move ahead and try to avoid as much objections and comments so that we finish with this witness.
Very well. The next document I would like us to look at is 5D1346. If we could look at it in e-court, it's an order from the Drina Corps Command. Again, the date is the 15th of July, 1995. Let us look at this part where it says item 1. Again, the MUP forces are mentioned, as are the attached units. The date is the 15th of July, 1995. Could you please look at item 1, please, of this order? So it says here, based on the latest developments in the general area of Zvornik, the commander of the Drina Corps decided that elements of the 1st Zvornik Brigade and of the POSSS should return to their area of responsibility. So this is what is of interest to me. We're talking about attached units. So this is an order from General Krstic to the MUP forces and the attached units. Is that so? Answer yes.
Before you answer the question, Madame Favon.
Peut-être le témoin peut regarder.
Maybe, Your Honor, the witness could tell us who this order was sent to.
All right, let's combine that together with your answer to Mr. Lazarevich's question, please.
Well, it says here you can see yourself in the upper part. Interpreters note the speakers are overlapping. Answer. Well, it says ZPPBR. I suppose that this acronym stands for the Zvornik Infantry Brigade. And it says here that they should go back to their area of responsibility in order to prevent any consequences of the any attack on Zvornik. Interpreters note, could the speaker please slow down? Microphone, please.
You are already going beyond the question, so you don't need to go any further. Your next question, Mr. Lazarevich.
Very well. Does this order pertains to MUP units too? To cut the long story short. Answer, yes. It says here in the order that the Zvornik Infantry Brigade with the MUP forces and attached units would carry out the task that is indicated here. That's what it says in the order. Question, and can we consider this as a new combat task for the MUP units in relation to the task that we had an opportunity to discuss regarding order number 464/95?
Mr. Van der Poel.
Again, Mr. President, that's leading, and it also calls for speculation.
All right, but we have the answer now. Let's proceed. You rose too late. The answer was already there. Next question, please.
Now I would like us to look at P927. It's an order of the commander of the VRS main staff dated the 17th of July 1995 pertaining to the unification of operations. And I would like us to look at item 1 in this order. Could we please zoom in so that you can read it? In item 1, 3 officers from the main staff are dispatched to provide assistance to unify the VRS and MUP forces, to plan and coordinate combat operations, to block and rout and destroy the remnants of the Muslim forces. Can we see from this document anything about the use of the MUP units in combat operations on the 17th of July? Answer, just a moment, I need some time to read it. Question, yes, of course.
He reads it, Mr. Lazarevich. Yesterday and also last week, you spent I don't know how much time standing and sitting and standing up again, complaining that the witness was being asked questions which went outside the area of expertise. And you are doing exactly the same as your colleagues did when you were objecting.
Yes, Your Honor, that's true. However, some suggestions have been made to this witness by the defense of by my colleague, Mr. Ostojic, in relation to resubordination and the continuance of combat activities by the units of MUP. So I believe I'm entitled to try to clarify this with this witness.
By now you should know what our position is in relation to statements made by expert witnesses on matters that fall outside their area of expertise. I think we've made that clear already. Anyway, are you in a position to answer the question, please, Professor? And if questions are put to you that fall outside your area of expertise and you think you should not answer them, just say so.
Možete ponoviti pitanje?
Please repeat your question. Now I've read the document.
No.
Question. On the basis of this document, can we see anything about the participation of the MUP units in combat operations on the 17th of July 1995?
Ja kada pročitam
Answer. When I read the first item here, I can see that together with the VRS forces, they should continue destroying the remnants of the Muslim forces in the sectors of Kamenica and Cerska. Question. Very well. Now I would like us to look at another document. In fact, I have only two questions for you and then we're done with your re-examination. The document is P5D 1320. And I would like to ask you a question regarding this document. It's a dispatch from the Office of the Minister of the Interior. The date is the 11th of July 1995. Interpreter's correction, June. And it's, in fact, a forwarding of a dispatch that bears the same date. Could we please look at the bottom of this document? And you can see the President of Republika Srpska has orally ordered the use of all the available forces of the MUP units of Republika Srpska from the municipalities that are listed here, Rogatica, Višegrad, Goražde, Rudo i Čajniče. And could you please read the document through and then I will ask you a question. Answer yes, I'm reading it. Just a moment. You were asked some questions about the order 64/95, that's dated the 11th of June 1995. And if you look at this document, does this indicate the legal procedure that you spoke about in your examination in chief, the legal procedure that you spoke about regarding the use of the MUP units?
Kako to mislite, ne razumem.
Answer. What do you mean? I don't understand what you're saying. Question. Well, in light of this document, you can see that there is an oral order issued by the President of the Republic. Answer. Yes, that's what it says here. Question. And then the commander of the main staff is now saying take immediate measures through competent organs of the RS MUP in the above mentioned municipalities, that the personnel be called up and dispatched to the 14th HL Infantry Brigade, who should be used on the demand of the brigade commander. Answer, yes, that's what it says. Question, is this the legal procedure that you were talking about when you were speaking about document 64/95, about the use of the MUP units? Answer, yeah, well, yes, I see this dispatch here. And it does describe the legal procedure. Question, that's precisely my question. Answer, yes, it describes the legal procedure, but I can't see, so to speak. Well, the procedure is described here. Question, fine. My last question. When you were asked questions by Mr. Ostojic, you were also asked about reporting. Quite specifically, whom should the chief of the SJB, Zvornik, should send his reports to? That's at page 15 of the transcript yesterday. I would now like us to look at the exhibit 3115, dated the 15th of July. It's a dispatch from the commander of the staff of the Security Services Center in Zvornik, notifying about the situation in the area of the center. If we could look at the upper part of this document. Could we please look at the addressees? We can see here the Republika Srpska MUP at Pale, then the cabinet of the minister, the VRS main staff, the MUP of the Republika Srpska, the minister, the command of the Drina Corps, the forward command post of the Drina Corps, attention General Krstić, and the command of the 1st Zvornik Brigade and the 1st Bratunac Infantry Brigade. Answer, yes, that's what it says here. Question. What can we conclude on the basis of this document regarding the reporting procedure? Reporting on the part of the Public Security Center. According to this document, who receives reports from it? Only the organs within the Ministry of the Interior, or other structures or other organs too? Answer, well, based on this document, some units in the Corps Command, the main staff, so it's a very broad circle of addressees.
I predsjednik.
And here we can see the President of the Republic, the ministry, the minister, and some commands are mentioned here quite specifically. Question. Thank you very much, Mr. Istivojević. I have no further questions for you. Microphone, please.
Monsieur le Président, j'ai une seule question pour le témoin, bien entendu.
Your Honor, I'd like to put one single question to the witness relating to the previous document, 5D 1320, describing the procedure applicable when police units are subordinated to army forces.
The question and then decide whether to allow it or not.
Donc il s'agit d'un document.
It is a question relating to June 1995, completely unconnected to what happened in Srebrenica, and I wanted to ask the witness whether in any documents that he has consulted himself, he has ever come across a similar document relating to subordination of police units to army units.
Document again.
One moment. Is it okay with you?
Dans la région, dans l'action qui nous intéresse, c'est-à-dire en juillet.
Talking about July 1995, of course, and Srebrenica, which is what we're talking about.
We are agreed here to allow the question, so if you can answer it, Professor, we can finish your testimony here.
No. Dobro, i sad možete molim.
Yes, could you please repeat your question now? I've read the document once again, so your question is?
Avez-vous jamais vu, s'agissant de l'opération?
Relating to the Krivaya operation in Srebrenica in July 1995, did you ever see a document from the police services or the President of the Republic outlining the procedure similar to what you saw in 5D 1320, i.e. informing the VRS that the police would be subordinated to it?
Aha, da li sam video bio?
Okay, so have I seen any documents that were sent to the military informing the military that the police would come and to be resubordinated to the army? No, I can't recall any. Not in the documents that I went through, apart from this document. So any other document that whereby somebody would inform them about that. Interpreter's note, could the witness please speak into the microphone?
Kome treba ove policijske jedinice da se jave. Iz toga sam izveo zaključak kome treba da se pretpočinje.
Est-ce que si vous avez ce document?
He is being now speaking into the microphone, but we haven't been receiving interpretation. Let's bring it to an end as quickly as we can, please.
Oui, Monsieur le Président, la seule chose que je voudrais savoir, c'est le...
Your Honor, I just wanted to know whether the document that the witness is referring to
Let's see this one.
is a document that he could read to us from. He mentions the document of the 10th of July 1995, which apparently he has in his brief. Could he maybe tell us who this was destined to, this order?
Evo, čitam.
This
I'm reading.
my colleague had the opportunity to ask in relation
Yes.
to this.
Yes.
She just chose not to cross-examine it.
Yes, I think we have to finish here because at the end of the day you were only allowed one question, Madame Favot. That brings the testimony of this expert witness to an end. I would like to thank you for having been kind enough to come not once but twice to give evidence. And I also, on behalf of the trial chamber, wish you a safe journey back home. Hope you make it in time.
Hvala vam.
Thank you.
Incidentally, for the record, although I don't think I need to repeat it because I said it yesterday, we are still sitting pursuant to 15 bis for the same reasons explained yesterday. Documents, Mr. Lazarevic.
Your Honor, I think our list is already been tendered. We did.
Sorry.
We've sent the wrong one, obviously. I'm sorry, I'll just have to check this. Maybe we can deal with this at a later stage just to make sure that everything is...
All right, okay. In the meantime, there is Popović defense team has one document.
We send a list with just one document.
One document,
Yes.
which is 1D 1316. Any objections, Mr. Lazarevic?
Not in relation to this one.
Mr. Van der Puy?
Mr. President.
Any other objections from any of the other defense teams? None. So your document, Mr. Zivanovic, is admitted. Beara defense team, you have 3 documents that you wish to tender. P24, if that is not already tendered, 5D 1389 and 2D 615. Any objections, Mr. Lazarevic?
Yes, Your Honor, I have objection for these 2 documents, 5D 1389 and 2D 615. In respect to this first document, it wasn't commented by witness at all. I mean, the witness obviously didn't make any comments in relation to this document, and I don't see the basis for admission of this document through this witness. As for 2D 615, I don't believe that this document is reliable. The witness was, this expert was asked questions in this respect, and he gave an explanation, and I believe that in order to tender this document into evidence, there needs to be an additional proofing of these facts which were stated in this document.
Any further comments from anyone? Mr. Van der Puy?
No, Mr. President. We have no remarks with respect to either of these 2
Okay.
documents, no objections.
Mr. Ostojic?
With respect to document 2D615, I know they claim it's unreliable, but I didn't hear a basis for it. So I'd be curious to know why they think it's unreliable. We did hear from the witness, and we heard his prefatory comments. First, he didn't know about an incident, and then he knew actually pretty well that the incident involved purportedly another person. I think it is reliable. I think the practice was that we would introduce these types of material when it goes to issues of credibility, which I think it does. With respect to the other document, I still
Yeah,
believe...
but one moment, I stop you. I stop you here. Is it your position, therefore, that you don't believe the witness in his statement that that document doesn't refer to him, but mistakenly, and that the incident occurred that was referred to in that document refers to someone else?
With all due respect, carefully reviewing the witness's testimony, he first denied knowing anything about an incident. Then he certainly knew about it, and then he claimed that it was someone else, not him, that was involved in it. It clearly identifies him on the document. We believe that it is what it is, although he testified that it was some other individual. I think the document is reliable on its face. It is an international organization. And we think unless they brought in other articles that this witness claims exist as to who was involved in these two incidents, we believe
They
the defense lawyers who called...
You brought up this...
What's two incidents? I apologize.
And in their re-examination, I think they could have, as they did with other documents, bring it up to the witness to show these articles that the witness claims exist from some newspapers that he didn't identify, claiming that he wasn't involved in the incident. But it's not that big of a point for us. I think the court heard the evidence, have seen the exhibit.
I'm very glad to hear you say this. It's certainly not a big point to us. I don't see the point of admitting this document in the first place unless there's disagreement. If, however, you want to pursue the matter further later on and bring evidence in relation to the alleged incident as it may relate to this last witness, then of course we will review our position. With regard to 5D1389, what's your position in relation to the objection?
Covered it with him off the top of my head. I don't know that, but I could take a look at it. But you know, if he says we didn't, we'll bring it in through another witness certainly. But I think we covered a whole host of documents. This is one of them, and I think this expert or this witness actually looked at it and he gave some comment on it.
So let's admit only P0024 for the time being. The other 615 is not being admitted. 1389, we reserve your rights to have it admitted later on through someone else. Thank you. We do have the lists now, Mr. Lazarevic. Why is mine thicker? Let's proceed. We have a 3-page, 4-page list here. Any objections from the prosecution to any of these documents?
Mr. President, in all honesty, I'll need a little bit of time to go through these documents.
Okay. Other defense teams? Same position? Same. All right. So we'll come back to you after the first break.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Is that fair enough?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Zivanovic, Mr. McCloskey, and Ms. Favor, I suppose you've had a chance to discuss a little bit. I take it that we are first proceeding with Mr. Mijatovic?
Yes, that's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you. Madam Usher? Yes, Mr. McCloskey.
Yes, Mr. President, we will be prepared to cross-examine Mr. Mijatovic on any issues of involved. However, we also, if you don't feel it's necessary, it may not be necessary given the issue and the limited issue. So we also won't take offense if you don't think it's necessary. But
same here, Mr. McCloskey. I mean, we don't know either if we are going to ask any questions once we have given the opportunity to Mr. Zivanovic to put his questions first.
Because we will be able to go into issues of credibility and such, but given that that's really not the issue at hand, it may not be, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Miletić.
Good afternoon.
Come back. I noticed that you have already taken the opportunity to salute the accused. But before you proceed, we proceed with your testimony. If you could kindly go through the solemn declaration again.
I solemnly declare that I will speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Please make yourself comfortable. Mr. Jovanovic is going to ask you a few questions.
Before I start my examination in chief, I'd like to inform the trial chamber that we got two verification of accuracy of interpretation this morning.
We've seen them, yeah.
However, I found another error in translation. It is related to the page 21946, lines 5 to 15. It is in the first sentence. Precisely, I read it in BCS. U toku rada na izuzimanju
During,
utvrdio sam
I ascertained that in relation to July 1995, according to statements given by the hotel's employees, someone, and they don't know who this was, had seized the journals and the books from July, precisely.
In translated part of this document, the word journals, journali, was not translated. Just the books. So, two BCS words, journale I knjige, were translated just with one word, one English word, books. So it might arise the confusion in
Okay, I thank you for clarifying that. As usual, you are very meticulous in your work. Mr. Jovanovic, I suppose we can now proceed with your questions.
Yes.
And I would suggest that you explain to the witness the reason why he is here again. In other words, that it is not something capricious, something that we felt the need for. I also noticed you, Mr. Mitchell, standing up and suddenly sitting down again.
Your Honour, we agree with the change, but the word journali has been consistently translated as logbooks, and we'd like to put that on the record.
Yes, Mr. Jovanovic.
Yes, but the corrected version of the transcript, the word journals, journali, was not translated at all. Just the word knjige, books.
Yeah.
It is a point.
Yes, Mr. Mitchell.
We agree that it wasn't translated. I'm just saying that the word journali has been translated as logbook. That's the issue.
All right. It is so translated in the last one that we have received anyway, regarding page 21917, lines 5 to 10. All right, let's proceed. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Answer, good afternoon. Question. I told you already why you must reappear before this tribunal, but I'm about to tell you again. The need has arisen for you to clarify certain elements of your evidence, more specifically in relation to your work in terms of gathering documents at Fontana Hotel in Bratunac. That is the only thing that we shall now be focusing on. Thank you. First of all, can you please tell me what assignment you got from me as lead defense counsel about the activities regarding Fontana Hotel. Can you tell us that, please? Answer. The task is short and clear. I was told to go to Bratunac, to go to Fontana Hotel, and to find any evidence on Vujadim Popović having spent a night there in July 1995. If possible, I was also told to make copies of any documents found and hand the whole thing over to you. That was the extent of it. Question. Were you dispatched to look for a particular document? Answer. The only thing that was mentioned at the time was for me to try and track down this information in the guest book dated 1995. Question. Can you please tell me who you were in contact with in order to accomplish this mission of yours? Question. Throughout the verification procedure or right away? Question. No. Who did you first get in touch with? Who was the first person? Answer. All right, thank you. I spoke on the phone to Brana Ilic, who for a long time was the only person who was on duty, as it were, every day at Fontana Hotel. He was the only person who could provide answers to matters such as these. Question. So what was the feedback you got from him when you finally spoke to him? Answer. I'd asked him a question about who owned the hotel and who I should seek out in order to apply for this official procedure. He said they had a manager who was from Bielina and then dropped a name on me that I failed to memorize. I asked Brane to get in touch with this person because they spoke often anyway, in order to inform them that I was there in order to gain entry to the hotel and accomplish my mission there. Question. Can you tell us what you agreed on that occasion? Answer. I had received permission to access the hotel. This is something that Brane eventually conveyed to me. 4 days after you gave me the mission, I went there with Brane and we tried to track down the document that you required, or rather the information that you required. Once you were there, what happened next? At Bratunac. After. Answer. Soon after I'd met up with Brane, he took me to the cellar of Fontana Hotel. This is a dark area, no natural light, and it's not particularly tidy either. He took me to an area that appeared to be a closed room, some sort of a room. I don't know what it was used for, or rather it wasn't closed, it was an open plan room. There were some shelves there, and on one of those there was a heap of loose sheets of paper. It was an untidy scene. They'd probably been lying around that place for years, and then he started skimming through these loose sheets of paper. Soon after, he turned around, looked at me, and told me that whatever it was that we were looking for was certainly not there. Right after this, we left the hotel. 100 meters further down that street, we were off to what he referred to as the directorate. or the management. I didn't know that that place was the management of Hutro Podrinje, which is a catering association, a local one from Bratunac. Question, I would like to interrupt you here. I would like to have a clarification from you at one point. We are going back to the hotel itself. Answer, yes, that much is clear, thank you. Question, this room that you mentioned, where exactly was it? What part of the building? Can you be more specific about that? Answer, you take the entry and then on the left-hand side is reception. Right next to reception, there is a staircase taking you down to the basement of the hotel. Question, thank you. Just another thing. You mentioned shelves where these sheets were stacked. Was it just on these shelves or were they lying elsewhere in that room too? Answer, no, we talk about that room in the hotel. It wasn't like there were proper shelves. This was a protruding section of the wall. I'm not sure how to put it. It resembled a shelf to some extent, but there was this one bit of wall jutting out. And that's where we found this lots of loose sheets, a whole mound. Question, was that the only place, this shelf-like place, the section of the wall jutting out, was that the only place with sheets of paper? Answer, I turned around to look around me and that was the only place. Everything else was much the same as elsewhere in the hotel apart from the section that was still being used. Question, all right, my understanding earlier on was a bit different, but now you've set the record straight. Now you're off to the management building, as you said. Can we pick it up from there? Answer, Brane got the key and he unlocked the door. The key was in his possession. The archive was, so to speak, under his control, but under lock and key, and he had a key. It was a musty room and the roof was leaking. It was the office of this company. And then he went without hesitation straight to a place where he appeared to believe he could track this information down for me. I simply followed him into that room. It was an office, as a matter of fact. I hadn't read the tag on the door. I didn't know what this room was. Nevertheless, Brane started going through the documents there one by one, inspecting the documentation that was there. First of all, he was looking for the guest book, which I believed was the right thing to do, because that was my reasoning too. This, I believe, would provide us a shortcut to the information that we were after. Get the guest book for July. That's what we'd been told. However, he soon gave up the search because he realized soon enough that there was no way he could possibly find it there. He knew some things, he didn't know some others, but if there was something he knew about this, he would have found it immediately. Then he realized that there was no guest book. The search continues. We were off to another part of the room where he began rummaging through sheets of paper that were folded 3 times, as it were. And they were stacked up in what I can only refer to as a complex shape. And then I said, Brane, what is this? What do you think these are called, the documents that you're after? And he said, these are journals. I'd never heard that one before. I walked up to this heap of papers and I had a look. Perhaps I should briefly describe what these were like.
Yes, Mr. Mitchell.
Your Honour, just the same translation issue as before. Journali should be translated as logbooks. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Zivanovic.
I believe that journali should be translated as journals, but
Your Honour, that's the official CLSS
I have nothing against
position on
this
that
kind
word.
of translation, and I ask the witness to explain what the journals or
All right,
books are.
let's proceed. It's almost a case of what's in a name, but let's proceed.
Okay.
They are what they are, whether you call them journals or logbooks. At the end of the day, we'll have a look at them and we'll know exactly in our mind what word to attribute.
Gospodine Mijatović, ja samo da
Mr. Mijatović, I'd like to ask you one thing. Can you just slow down a little while giving evidence? I'm sorry for interrupting you. This is precisely what I was about to tell you. Can you please pick up where you left off? I'm not sure if you know where you left off, do you? Question. When I got closer to that place, Brane had already finished his inspection of what he referred to as journals. So I proceeded to do the same thing. That is why I'm certain what they looked like, and I think if shown one now, I could not possibly fail to identify this. This is a large format sheet. They have a certain size, and in order to be stacked up like that, they had to be folded 3 times, not just once. Each of the sheets had the month that it was in relation to, and the order was chronological. Handwritten on every single sheet, the date that the sheet was in relation to, starting, of course, with January on the top of the pile, and then spilling over into February, and the order was consistently followed. Question, just another thing. I believe we have a small problem. Did you say that you could identify those journals, what they looked like in terms of appearance? And can you please just repeat about their format, but please slow down if you can. Answer, right, thank you. These documents were not bound, they didn't have any covers, and they had a certain size, and that's how they were stacked there. That's how they were stored there. They're one of a kind, the only document of that size being used, and in this they were different from all the other documents that were circulating. They were in relation to each month separately. They were a reflection of the financial status of the hotel on a daily basis, and the order followed was chronological.
Kad kažete dnevnog
Question. When you say daily financial situation, does this mean that a journal was drafted in relation to each day, or a sheet, or each month had its own sheet? How did this work? Answer. Based on the hotel's business, it really depended whether a sheet could be filled on any particular day, and it was by no means certain that 30 sheets would equal a month. This was by no means a commitment. Each day had a sheet, but sometimes there were days when there were no guests, a very few, so the entries made were not too numerous, and then they would go on like that. So a month has to comprise of every single day within that month. That was the system. Question. I think you talked about whether these sheets were bound or whether they had covers. I may have missed that. But can you please tell me, nevertheless, was there any system to the way these were stored and organized? Were they organized in a tidy way or not? Answer. Well, yes, there was a system to this, and it appeared to be a tidy system. There were some folders there, and so on and so forth, but as soon as I looked at it, I could realize that there was order there. Question, all right. Did you manage to track down all the journals in relation to that year? Answer, one was missing, the July journal. I personally saw this for myself because I was sorting these month by month. I was unable to simply believe that July was missing because everything else was there. But this was a very conspicuous absence, and Brane before me had established the same thing. Question. Thank you very much. All right. That's what happened. You failed to track down the July journal. What did you do next? What steps did you take, if any? Answer. That same day, having left the management building, we agreed that we could obtain this information in different form from the accountancy unit, from a different source. The accountants. Brane was not a qualified bookkeeper, so to speak. He was, for the most part, waitering. So he was not willing to infringe on anyone else's territory, especially that of the accountants working there. But he knew them well, so I pleaded with him to call them after I'd left and to ask them over the following days to come there, to go to the cashier's unit and to try to find anything that, any sort of information that they believed might be useful to us. He promised to do just that for me. Meanwhile, I'd managed to get in touch with Risto Sharenac, who at the time was at the Jahorina Olympic Center. He was the last manager of the hotel before the hotel went into administration. Mr. Sharenac was quite kind with me, promising, yes, promising, that he would speak to his former employees, or rather the lady employees of the accountancy unit. He said he was quite confident that they could do the job for us, that they could track the documents down for us because they were diligent workers and very systematic. He knew them well. He said, Miletić, nothing for you to worry about. You'll be getting this information in due course. The documentation was kept in order. Everything was being done by the book. It was all tidy. The documentation was tidy and the archive was under lock and key. I took his word for it. And I held him to his promise. So I bade my time waiting for his invitation, expecting that there would be an end to this and that the documents would be tracked down. I was convinced that this would be the case.
Question, very well. What happened next after you received some sort of information? Answer, I learned in the meantime that the main accountant and the cashier helped Brane to locate and copy the documents and invoices at the accountancy department relating to the guests who stayed at the hotel in July of that year. Once they finished this, Brane called me by phone. That was about 10 days after my departure. He told me that I could come over and take the copies of these accounting documents, and that is precisely what I did. Question. Can you describe for us how this handover of documents took place? Who gave you the copies of the documents? Answer. I arrived at the hotel and Brane came out to meet me. I remember quite clearly, although some 20 months had elapsed since then, we were standing in the street and he gave me these copies without any covering sheet. He told me, this is it, this is what you were looking for, and I'm giving it to you. And it's finished. I took the documents from his hand and in front of him just browsed through the document superficially. I noticed that these were invoices. The copies were not exactly good, and then there were also some other documents containing names of persons. I suppose that those were supplements to the invoice, or rather the documents on the basis of which these invoices were issued. The reservation sheets or confirmations or whatever. Just like a delivery bill is part of an invoice, in hotel business these supplements always accompany invoices. I immediately saw that there were some 30-odd documents. I didn't count them. This is not neither a lot, neither a few. I also noticed some bills relating to the use of restaurants and the bills relating to drinks and food.
That's the
question. On that day, did you have a chance to look closely at these invoices? Can you describe these other documents that were attached to the invoices? Do you remember what they actually contained? Who wrote them? Who they were sent to? Answer. These other documents constituted less than a third of the documents. They were issued by the Bratunac Brigade. It was a typical format typed in on each sheet, saying that the following persons were given approval to spend the night at the hotel on specific days according to the attached list. And these lists were different in terms of the number of persons and their names. This document was also certified by the brigade stamp and signed by the brigade officer in charge. I think that constituted a complete set of documents that served as a basis for providing services by the hotel and later on for charging for those services. A question, in order to avoid any confusion, in addition to this document that you mentioned now, issued by the Bratunac Brigade, was there any additional list attached thereto, or were these documents only what you saw? Perhaps you haven't been properly understood. Answer. Those were A4 forms and nothing else other than that. And these were the copies that I took over. In no way could they be in any other format, either smaller or bigger, with different data, different shape, and things like that. Question, Mr. Miletić, I shall be very brief. Given that you had an opportunity to see those journals earlier, can you tell me, among those copies, were any copies of the journals? Answer, no, there were no copies of the journal. I would have spotted them immediately because of the form. You have a sheet of paper folded 3 times. People might remember that payroll list used to be folded like that, and they were printed. According to the French word journal, interpreters know that we didn't comprehend what the witness is saying.
Stop. You need to repeat a bit, please, because the interpreters had problems following it. I can tell you where they until where they caught up with you. People might remember that payroll lists used to be folded like that, and they were printed. According to the French word journal, this is where it stops. Go ahead.
Da. Dakle, po definiciji,
According to the definition of this term that we are interested in, that means a journal, a diary, or a accountancy book that contains all daily financial changes according to a certain chronological law order. And there's also a definition that it might mean a newspaper, a magazine, and things like that. Question. Can you tell us, among the copies of the documents that you received, were any pages from the guest book? Answer. I don't think that would have been possible. There were no journals and there were no pages taken out of the guest book because I would have recognized them. Question. One more question, please. Among these copies, were there any documents in which the name of Vujadin Popović was mentioned? Because that was basically the terms of reference of what you were instructed to look for and why you went there. Answer. I did notice among the documents immediately that the name Vujadin Popović appeared in a couple of places, and that was sufficient for me in terms of the objective of our verification. And with that, I deemed my mission to be accomplished. I took them and handed them over further on. Question. In a nutshell, you said that you had been given some 30 documents. Does that mean that the remaining documents did not contain the name of Vujadin Popović? Answer, no, they didn't. Question. Can you tell me, please, you and Mr. Brana Ilić, at the time when he handed over the copies to you, did the two of you compile any list or some document confirming that he had handed over the documents to you according to the specification, and on the other hand, did you sign such a kind of document as the recipient of these documents? Answer. During the handover, we did not, or rather Brada did not make any additional documents that should have probably contained the specification of the documents attached to it. They were just copied without any attachments. Question. First of all, tell us, did you hand over these documents to someone else? And if you did, to whom did you hand them over? Answer. When I first met you in Zvornik, I gave the documents to you in the same way as I received them from Brana without any written record of that. I just handed them over to you personally. Question, one more thing. After that, were you given another assignment to go to the Fontana Hotel? And if you did, can you tell us when and why? Answer. After a certain period of time, or rather long period of time, more precisely the following year, I was instructed to go to the same location and look again for the same documents and to make the same number of copies as I did the first time. I followed the same procedure as I did on the first occasion. I called Mr. Illich first, and he called me back very quickly after a couple of days by telling me that the copies were made and waiting for me. And I went there to collect them either on the same day or the following day. Answer. Can you tell us, were these the same documents that you had taken the previous year? Answer. I couldn't expect anything different. I expected them to be identical in number and shape and the quality of copy without any attached documents that did not exist at the same during the first time, and I didn't expect them to appear the next time. Question: when you said without any attachments, are you referring to the record of handover that would have been signed by you? Answer: yes, that is what I was referring to, a record on the handover. It wasn't made on that occasion either. Question: just to clarify things, you said that you had been instructed. Can you tell me who instructed you to go there? Answer: Mr. Živanović, or rather you, told me that you had misplaced these documents. I accepted that, and I thought that this would be a very easy task, and that is how I went and did it for you. Question: Mr. Mijatović, today in my office I showed you a selection of documents that the OTP had obtained, and I read to you part of the statement given by Mr. Erin Gallagher, the OTP investigator, who interviewed Mr. Brana Ilic about, inter alia, this handover of documents. I showed you these documents that Mr. Brana Ilic mentioned. Tell me, when you compared those documents and the documents that you received, can you tell me whether these are two identical sets of documents, if there are any differences, what the differences are? Answer: these two sets of documents are identical. I could have seen that at the first glance and in every detail. Question: thank you. A couple of more questions relating to your testimony of the 6th of June and the 9th of June of this year. We have shown you a transcript of the part of your testimony in BCS, in the language that both of us speak, and you were able to read these two passages that were in dispute in a sort of way, and reflected your testimony in a different manner from the one that you have given today. I'm going to read to you this part of your testimony, and I would kindly ask you to tell me, because you indicated that there were some omissions, and therefore I would kindly ask you to explain to the chamber what happened. That's the transcript of the 6th of June 2008, page 21917, lines 2 to 10.
Your Honour, can I just confirm what this BCS transcript is? Is it the one that was transcribed by CLSS in their memo that we received today? Or is it the old one that we received this morning?
Yes, it is from this. No. It is the transcript I was provided by OTP yesterday by Mr. McCloskey, but I believe that it is the same as the BCS version of translation units. I believe so.
Your Honour, I think the only difference is we provided a transcript of lines 2 to 10. CLSS only reviewed lines 5 to 10. So just to put that on the record.
5 to 10. Yes, 5 to 10 is the subject of my question. It is just the answer, not the question. Dakle, vaš odgovor je glasio.
So you gave the following answer on that occasion. The Fontana Hotel in Bratunac has been in the receivership since 2006, and it's still ongoing. Given this situation pertaining to this hotel, we managed, with the assistance of its employees,
koji se još uvek vode na spisku,
who are still on the list of employees of the hotel, to locate and take certified journals, the so-called journals of the guests staying overnight, and the invoices relating to the guests who stayed at the hotel in June and July 1995. This is part of your testimony that was entered into the transcript on the 6th of June. You had an opportunity to see it, and can you tell me now how it happened that this version is completely different from the one that you have given us today? What is this all about? Answer. Most probably this is due to imprecision. I would not like to call it lack of concentration, but apparently during my long testimony, had I known that I should have been more precise at the time, I should have and could have probably used some more precise words, and some words are actually missing. What does that mean? Obviously, there is some erroneous meaning attached to this, and it deviates from what I wanted to say.
Just to clarify, Your Honour, the witness is suggesting that the words aren't missing from the transcript or from the audio. It was he didn't actually say them. Is that correct?
Do you agree to that, Mr. Jovanovic?
He didn't say the proper word at the time when he testified.
All right, I
it
think
is
it's
a point,
clear
not,
enough. Yeah, it's clear enough. Let's proceed.
Error in transcript. Gospodine Mijatović.
Mr. Mijatović, today I showed you the corrected or rather this version of the transcript, and I think you actually made a copy of it and then you corrected it. Or rather, you put in what you failed to say last time. Now, I don't know whether you can perhaps read this or maybe just say it, or perhaps I should read out to you what you told me today and then you can confirm whether this is so or not. We sent this text to the prosecution, so if they're not objecting. Answer, I think that the sentence went more or less like this, that in the business box, and then there is a list made, and the list includes the guest book, the journals, but there it should also say that instead of those documents that were supposed to exist there, the couple of documents that I mentioned, we found invoices. And then it goes on. So instead of the documents that we don't have, we have invoices. So I think that in this context, we can now really say everything accurately so that everybody can understand it. Question, let me just read the second sentence that should have been corrected. So let me just ask you whether this is what you said should have been said and wasn't said. We are in such a statutory position of this hotel, and we managed to retrieve from the archives, with the assistance of the workers who are still on the lists of the employees of the hotel, we managed to find and take the certified, instead of certified journals of the book of overnight stays, the invoices that pertain to the overnight stays of the guests in the period of June and July 1995. Answer, I think that's precisely how it is. So instead, and then I list the documents, we took the invoices. Question. Could you please tell me one more thing? The word June is mentioned in the transcript, and what you actually said is June, July. So, since this word June really was said, could you please explain to us what this is all about? Answer. I think since the previous time period was mentioned, I probably meant to say it, but that's a different thing, that this was the period from the 1st until the 31st of July. But since I spoke about the time period, then the word June slipped in, and it was a slip of a tongue. Question, but could you please repeat once again, did you have any task to search through the documents pertaining to June 1995? Answer, no, never, ever.
Just one more paragraph to give to the witness, but it is a time for a break.
I think you can proceed.
Yes. Thank you. Gospodine Mijatoviću.
Mr. Mijatović, let me just show you the second paragraph from the transcript. That's at page 21,946. The lines are 2 through 15. Again, we're only interested in one particular bit. Well, I'll have to read the whole text. The thing is of a technical nature, and this means to know what documents we need for what period and from what part of the archives. Whether the cashier's desk, the accountancy, the auxiliary books, or what? As we worked on collecting those documents, I ascertained that for July 1995, according to the statements made by employees of the hotel, somebody, they don't know who that is, had taken the journals, precisely the journals, and the books pertaining to July, with the assistance of the police station in Bratunac a few years earlier. And those documents could not be found in the archives of the hotel. However, the employees, the cashier, the accountant, and the others managed to find copies of those documents from other sources, or rather of invoices, instead of, or I'm sorry, no, that's not what it says in the original, I do apologize. Invoices, journals, the book of overnight stays of domestic guests, the book of overnight stays of foreign guests, and so on. And then we were able to put together everything that we needed, everything that we were supposed to get, so they were able to find it. Now, could you please tell me, well, I've already read out the word that I should not have read now, but I first had to ask you a question and then you were supposed to tell me. Could you please tell me whether this text, without this word that I read out, does that really reflect? You mentioned that there is a difference between what you said then and what you say now, so could you please tell me what is it? Why? What is it that in fact led to this confusion on your part? Answer: I think that it's the same thing as we had a little while ago. We're talking about the distinction between the documents that we didn't find and the documents that were available. As I listed them, I said we found invoices instead of, I'm not going to now list the documents that did not exist, that were not available. So I had to make that distinction, whereas I did not do it at the time. So again, it's the same thing as in the previous case. Question: so does it mean that you did not say the word instead? Answer: yes, I did not make that distinction. I didn't use any words to mark that distinction, and I should have. Question. And just one more question for you. As I went through the transcript, I noticed that you did not mention the letters that you described today, the approvals from the Bratunac Brigade that were attached to the bills or invoices. So could you please tell us why? Could you remember, can you remember why this was not mentioned by you earlier?
Mislim da...
Answer: I think that in the first testimony I did not mention the approvals issued by the Bratunac Brigade, the authorizations. They were an integral part of the documents that I received. I think I should have mentioned them, but it was precisely because of the precision that was lacking or that was suggested. I left them out. I don't know why, because they were in the minority in relation to other documents, the invoices. Question. Thank you very much, Mr. Mijatović. I have no further questions.
And so we'll have the break now, which needs to be of 30 minutes. It will be 30 minutes from now. Thank you. That's, in other words, we can actually reconvene at 20 minutes past 4.
All rise. Veuillez vous lever.